let's talk about one other big news item before we start to wrap up here, and that is the controversy surrounding strategies selling of Bitcoin for the first time. I don't think it was the first time in its history, but the first time in years and years and years. And we'll sidestep, because I know this is not your role, the impact on the market, which, although this was sort of pre-telegraphed during, I think, Saylor's Q1 earnings call, the market is obviously reacting poorly to it. But there is a real debate about how a contract on Polymarket tied to the timing of that sale is resolving. And it creates a whole nother, it opens up a whole nother suite of issues that we haven't even touched on when it comes to the operation of these platforms. So why don't you walk us through that really quickly?
So I believe the issue is that there was a market on Polymarket where you could place a trade, express a view on whether or not by a certain date,
Through the end of May. It was through the end of May.
MicroStrategy would sell it. And there was a disclosure that they filed, an SEC filing. The SEC filing was made in June, but it revealed that prior to June, in May, a sale had taken place. And so there is a dispute right now with, big money at stake on whether or not who is correct. For purposes of this trade, is the controlling date the date of the trade, the date of the sale of the Bitcoin, or is it when it was made public through the SEC file?
Yeah, and like you said, big money. I think like tens of millions of dollars have been bet on this market, and yeah, it really comes down again to like how these contracts are written, how they're structured, how they're designed to resolve. And then we didn't even get into the oracles, and they use a relatively smaller oracle provider called UMA to actually vote on the outcome of these events. And I think I've seen some analysis that ultimately 9 people control enough voting power on UMA to actually decide, which is not quite as decentralized as I would imagine many people would want. And this is just, I see it as another risk as it relates to prediction markets. I mean, we're excited about the technology. It does, I can certainly understand the value of it in sort of crowdsourcing intelligence for important events. I mean, there are certain vices. I mean, gambling and betting on like trivial items that maybe we need, maybe we don't. But I can certainly see the viability of certain markets. But at the same time, like this is another thing people have to account for when it comes to participating in these platforms. And this doesn't even get into necessarily some of the other issues or risks. And again, I know this is not your purview, Sam, but I mean, there's been a lot of reports. The Wall Street Journal had one. There was an academic study really showing how the vast majority of participants lose on these platforms. And just like a casino, the house always wins in a certain way. A lot of the people that make money are the professional market makers, the ones running sophisticated algos, and they prey on retail traders to a large part, trying to find like long odds that could pay off, and just fundamentally misunderstanding risk, which frankly I think we all do from a certain time to time. But there's a lot of different things for traders to be careful about when it comes to participating in these markets. I'd love for you, because we have to start wrapping up, to just what to the extent you are able to share, and from your vantage point as a former prosecutor and just someone who intimately understands the way these markets operate, in a not official financial advice point of view, like what are some of the things that you, for instance, would look for, try to understand before you might want to put a bet on one of these markets?
Sure. I think what I would look at first, as you point out, it's very important to diligence how is the bet, who determines how the bet is won, what are the rules for that. You need to understand, that's kind of part of understanding counterparty risk, right, is understanding the mechanics of it, so that if you want to make sure you're playing on a level playing field, right? That's part of understanding the level playing field. The second thing is, why am I placing this bet? Am I placing this bet because I believe I have better information or better judgment? Is this for fun? What am I doing here? If this is a serious bet, then I need to understand whether I really have some kind of asymmetric advantage that is legal. In other words, I don't have an asymmetric advantage because I have inside information, but I have an asymmetric advantage because I am smarter at analyzing the signal than the rest of the market. Or maybe it's a hedge. But frankly, I personally find that the greatest use of prediction markets is the information, not as a bettor, but as a source of information.
Yeah.
And obviously that happens because other people are placing bets, right? But it is an entirely new category of data signal. 5 years ago, this is not something that was pervasively available. But now when I'm thinking about an issue, I always look at Polymarket or Kalshi to see what are they saying about it, if there is anything.
Yeah, I think those are really good points. And frankly, it can be difficult for people to understand the way certain things resolve. I'm sure you remember, and I'm sure plenty of people listening here remember the debate over Zelensky's suit. I think when he came to, I guess, meet President Trump another time because of what happened when he went to the Oval Office. Was it in February of this year? Was that, or was it last year? At this point, I can't remember. But there was a whole debate as to whether or not what he wore was actually a suit. And it came down to, again, like these people, nameless people behind an oracle to kind of decide. And I remember that that resolution was also unsatisfactory to a lot of people. And it's hard sometimes to due diligence those types of things because these are very esoteric topics that that very few folks are experts in. But I think your point is very well taken. And again, because this is a trader show, this was a tremendous kind of walk through all the different issues pertaining to these markets. But for people participating, retail people participating, because there is a lot of incentive to participate in these markets, given how altcoins and crypto in general are going down a little bit. And if you're not going to put money into AI stocks, which are booming, prediction markets is an area where you can kind of get that risk on fix, for lack of a better term. So yeah, really understanding like what is the advantage that you have. And yeah, is it legal? There are plenty of legal ways to get for these types of markets to get like an informational advantage, and in that way it's very different and perhaps a little superior to securities markets. But you need to understand kind of what your advantage really is, or if nothing else, make sure you don't bet money that you can't afford to lose, because especially as some of these markets are now going to start offering like leverage trades and so on and so forth. There's a real possibility to really go up or go down depending on what happens.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one other point, which in addition to the rules, I think you're hitting on this with the suit example. There's a suit example is what exactly is the phrasing, right? I went to Hebrew school. We can debate the Talmud both ways, all right? And litigators, I make a living splitting hairs on what the meaning of words is. What does it mean? Is this ambiguous? Is it not ambiguous? And so you definitely have to be, is this clearly a binary? Is there going to be a clear winner to this?
Heads up everyone, we'll now be fully transitioning Bits and Bips to its new dedicated Bits and Bips channels starting next week. So if you're not yet subscribed to the Bits and Bips channels on X, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts, then go there now and subscribe. After that transition, for a few weeks, we'll play segments of the full interviews on Unchained as a reminder, but head there now and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You can get links to all of the platforms on unchainedcrypto.com/bits and bips. Again, that's unchainedcrypto.com/bits and bips, spelled BIPS.